Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the clandestine operations of Iran's Ministry of Intelligence. That's MOIS. You'll sometimes see it as VAJA. And, well, historically it was also known as VEV.
Right. An agency that very deliberately operates in the shadows, which, as you can imagine, makes getting a clear, reliable picture, well, it's quite a puzzle.
Absolutely. So our mission today is really to piece together what we can, from the available information. We'll trace the origins of the OMI, explore how it's evolved, and look at some of the activities it's reportedly been involved in, both inside Iran and on the international stage.
Yeah, and we've got a collection of sources here, everything from sort of broad overviews to specific reports of alleged incidents.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where did this organization actually come from?
Well, the official establishment date for the Ministry of Intelligence is August 18th, 1983. But its story really begins a bit earlier with the Prime Ministry Intelligence Office. Its main purpose was essentially to succeed SAVAK.
SAVAK. Right. The Shah's widely feared intelligence apparatus. That name definitely resonates, carries a certain history. So was the creation of the MOI a clean break, a total reset from SAVAK?
That's where things get really interesting and a bit complicated. While the fundamental ideology, the whole basis of the MOIS, is dramatically different from SAVAK's, the extent to which it was a complete break, well, that's debatable.
Okay.
Initially, there was undoubtedly a strong push, to eliminate all vestiges of SAVAK, purge everyone. However, a certain pragmatism seems to have taken hold pretty quickly, meaning many experienced SAVAK personnel were reportedly kept on, which created this inherent tension, right, within the newly formed MOI.
Right, so the public message is clean break, but behind the scenes.
Exactly. The practical need for seasoned intelligence officers meant the new organization was potentially carrying some of the operational DNA of its predecessor. This duality likely shaped its early methods and maybe some internal conflicts, too.
That's a fascinating point. So a new guiding philosophy, but potentially some familiar techniques in play. It really sets the stage for a pretty complex organization. And how did this new ministry actually come into being, like on paper? Who spearheaded its creation?
The proposal itself was put forward by Saeed Hajarian. He took it to the government of Mir Hossein Mousavi and the parliament. And this then triggered a significant debate within Iranian political circles about which part of the government should ultimately have oversight of such a powerful body.
So there were different ideas floating around about who should be in charge, control it.
Oh, yeah. The judiciary was considered, the supreme leader, even the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, which, is a powerful branch of the Iranian military, separate from the regular forces.
Okay.
They were all considered as potential overseers, but ultimately executive control was granted to the government.
But there was a catch, wasn't there?
A very specific and unique stipulation. The minister appointed to lead the MOI had to be a doctor of Islam.
A doctor of Islam. That's a very specific requirement. What was the thinking behind that?
Well, it strongly suggests the Islamic Republic's emphasis on religious authority, right? And the desire to ensure that the intelligence services operated totally in line with its religious and ideological principles.
Makes sense.
And furthermore, the establishment of the MOIS also coincided with the consolidation and, in some cases, the disappearance of several smaller intelligence agencies that had been operating before. It was really about centralizing and streamlining intelligence gathering under this new religiously guided ministry.
That does make a lot of sense, yeah. In terms of establishing a unified and ideologically aligned intelligence apparatus. Now, looking at the leadership over time, who's actually been at the helm of the MIS since it began?
Right. So since 1983, there have been 8 ministers of intelligence. The first was Mohammad Rayshari, serving under Prime Minister Mir Hossein Mousavi. He was followed by Ali Faloian during President Rafsanjani's time. Then came Ghorbanali Dori Najaf Abadi and Ali Younesi. Both served under President Khatami. President Ahmadinejad appointed Ghulam Hussein Mohseni Ejeh and later Haida Maslehi.
Right.
Mahmoud Alavi served during President Rouhani's presidency, and the current minister under President Raisi is Ismail Khatib.
Okay, quite a list.
And understanding the succession, this timeline of leadership, it provides a kind of backdrop for examining some of the more controversial events, things that have marked the MOIS' history, like those disturbing chain assassinations in the late 1990s.
Absolutely. That gives us a crucial timeline and, the political context. Let's delve into those chain assassinations. What exactly transpired there?
Well, in the autumn of 1998, a deeply troubling series of events unfolded in Iran. 3 dissident writers, along with a prominent political leader and his wife, were murdered in quick succession, all within about a 2-month period.
Wow.
These killings, understandably, ignited widespread public outrage, both inside Iran and internationally. It led to significant journalistic scrutiny investigations.
And what did these investigations turn up? What was the official explanation that emerged?
By mid-1999, prosecutors announced that a man named Saeed Imami had been the ringleader. He led what they described as rogue elements within the intelligence ministry who carried out these assassinations.
Oh, elements, okay.
But they also announced that Imami had reportedly died by suicide while in prison.
Suicide in prison.
Yeah.
That certainly sounds like a convenient end to the story for the alleged mastermind.
It definitely raised eyebrows, yeah. Given the sensitive nature of the information he allegedly possessed, the sources don't really offer much independent verification on that point.
Right. And what was the outcome in terms of legal consequences for others involved?
A trial was held in 2001, but it was heavily criticized by the victims' families and international human rights organizations, widely considered a sham, basically. Ultimately, 3 intelligence ministry agents were sentenced to death for the murders of 2 of the victims. 12 others got prison sentences. However, in 2003, 2 of those death sentences were then reduced to life imprisonment by the Iranian Supreme Court.
So reduced sentences, beyond the horrific loss of life. What did these events really reveal about the internal dynamics, of the Iranian regime and maybe the limits of dissent back then?
It painted a very grim picture, no doubt.
A truly disturbing chapter.
Oh.
Okay, shifting our focus now, let's look at activities beyond Iran's borders. Our sources detail quite a number of alleged incidents with international repercussions. Let's maybe start with the assassination of Masoud Malavi-Verdinjani in Turkey. This next alleged incident in Turkey, it reads like something straight out of a spy thriller.
It really does. In November 2019, Verdinjani, who was an online opposition activist, was shot and killed in Istanbul. A Turkish security official later stated that the suspected killer had confessed to acting under the direct orders of 2 Iranian intelligence officers.
Stationed where?
Stationed at the Iranian consulate in Turkey. So this points to a significant level of alleged direct involvement by Iranian intelligence in an assassination carried out on foreign soil.
That's a bold and concerning alleged operation. Okay, then we have the claim from April 2022 about the supposed capture of Mossad spies.
Yes, according to a statement released by Iran's intelligence ministry itself, they claim to have apprehended 3 individuals identified as Mossad agents. But it's interesting to note the statement didn't actually specify the nationalities of these alleged spies, just that they were Mossad.
Vague. Okay, moving across to Europe now. The shooting of Alejo Vidal-Quadros in Madrid, that was November 2023.
Yeah.
That also strongly suggests potential Iranian involvement, right?
Precisely. Vidal-Quadros, who's the former vice president of the European Parliament, thankfully he survived the attack. However, there are strong suspicions linking the shooting to Iranian operatives, particularly when we consider what our sources describe as a concerning pattern, a pattern of Iran targeting dissidents who reside abroad.
And this alleged pattern seems to extend to other European nations, too. The Netherlands, for instance, summoned Iran's ambassador in April 2025. What was the reason behind that particular move?
Right. This diplomatic action was taken following the exposure of 2 alleged assassination attempts that the Dutch government directly linked to Tehran. These plots reportedly involved the use of criminal networks operating within Europe, basically hiring criminals to target and silence individuals critical of the Iranian government.
Using criminal proxies.
Exactly. It adds another layer of complexity, makes these operations even harder to trace and, prevent.
The involvement of criminal networks is certainly a worrying development. And the situation in London, May 2025, that also sounds like a pretty significant counterterrorism operation.
It was, yeah. British authorities arrested 5 Iranian nationals. They were suspected of plotting an attack on the Israeli embassy in London. This was seen as a major counterterrorism success and is believed to have been orchestrated by the IRGC's Unit 840, often thought to be involved in overseas operations.
So potentially a coordinated effort involving different parts of the Iranian state.
That's the suggestion, yes.
The alleged plots targeting the Iranian-American journalist Masih Alinejad right here within the United States, those are particularly alarming. Happening on American soil.
Absolutely. Our sources detail multiple alleged plots by Iranian agents to either kidnap or assassinate Mrs. Alinejad in New York. These repeated attempts, they really underscore what appears to be a sustained and frankly, determined effort by Iran to silence dissenting voices, even when those voices are based in the U.S. and are, theoretically protected by American law enforcement.
And the alleged targeting doesn't just stop at journalists, does it? There are also these reports of plots aimed at former U.S. officials.
That's correct. The U.S. Department of Justice has brought charges against an Iranian national, Shahram Poursafi. He's accused of allegedly plotting to assassinate former National Security Advisor John Bolton. This plot is reported to have been an act of retaliation for the U.S. killing of Iranian General Qasem Soleimani back in 2020.
These are all extremely serious allegations. I mean, it paints a picture of quite aggressive intelligence operations extending far beyond Iran's geographical borders. Let's briefly touch upon the financial side, the resources allocated to the MOIS. Our sources indicate a notable increase in their funding recently.
Yes, according to one report we looked at, the MOIS experienced something like a tenfold increase in its allocated budget in 2024.
Tenfold.
Yeah. Now, while the specific reasons behind this dramatic surge in funding aren't detailed in our sources, it strongly suggests, well, a growing priority and a significant increase in resources being directed towards intelligence activities.
You'd think so. Finally, the agency's name itself has evolved somewhat over time, hasn't it? We mentioned a couple at the start.
It has. As we mentioned, it was initially known, sort of semi-officially, as SAVAK, reflecting its intended role as the successor to SAVAK. Its current official name is the Ministry of Intelligence of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
And Viva.
Right. It's also commonly referred to by the abbreviation VEVEK. That stands for Vezarat-e-Etelat va Amniyat Keshvar, which translates roughly to Ministry of Intelligence and National Security. And importantly, it's recognized as one of Iran's 3 sovereign ministerial bodies, which really highlights the critical nature and sensitivity of its work, both domestically and internationally.
Sovereign body. Yeah.
And for anyone interested in, seeing their official front, their website is vaja.air, VAJA.IR.
Okay. So, to sort of recap, we've navigated the formation and evolution of Iran's Ministry of Intelligence. We traced its roots back, somewhat controversially, to SAVAK, noting that initial ideological shift, but also the practical realities. We've examined significant historical events like those deeply troubling chain assassinations, and we've explored numerous allegations of its involvement in foreign operations, ranging from targeted killings to alleged espionage activities across multiple continents.
And it's just crucial to reiterate, I think, that verifying much of this information with absolute certainty is inherently challenging. It's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
Given the clandestine nature of intelligence agencies, we're primarily working with reports, claims, statements from a variety of sources, and each source, potentially has its own biases and perspectives.
Precisely. It's a complex and often opaque picture, really, built from the available reporting. And it leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. Considering the information we've explored today, what does all this suggest about the persistent difficulties in fully understanding the activities of state-sponsored intelligence agencies, and maybe their broader impact on the intricate landscape of global politics? What key questions remain unanswered for you as you reflect on this deep dive?